In this section, we'll be dealing with direct proportions. What is a direct proportion? A direct proportion is a relationship between two quantities, where if one quantity changes by a certain factor, the other quantity changes by the same factor, i.e., if one quantity doubles, the other quantity doubles as well. Usually, a direct proportion is written as one fraction equaling another. Another way to think about this is that if you have two quantities, A and B, and you increase A and B increases as well, then A and B are by the same factor, then A and B are directly proportional to one another. Similarly, if A goes down and B goes down by the same factor, then once again they are directly proportional to one another. So for example, if 3 turtles lay 250 eggs, how many eggs will 12 turtles lay? Well, we know that 3 turtles are going to lay 250 eggs, so another 3 turtles are going to lay another 250 eggs. Another 3 turtles will lay yet another 250 eggs, and finally 3 last turtles will lay 250 eggs. So what we have here is 4 times 250, or 1,000 eggs for 12 turtles. This is a direct proportion because as the number of turtles increases, the number of eggs increases by the same factor. So if you multiply the number of turtles by 3, you have to multiply the number of eggs if you multiply the number of turtles by 4, you have to multiply the number of eggs by 4 as well. Now we can do this by setting it up algebraically so that you don't have to draw out turtles and eggs every time you have a question like this. We would say 3 turtles is 250 eggs, so 12 turtles is how many eggs? You set these equal to one another because if things are directly proportional to one another, their ratios are the same. So 3 turtles over 250 eggs is equal to 12 turtles over how many eggs? How many is equal to, can be replaced by x, a variable, an unknown. So then this equation just becomes 3 over 250 is equal to 12 over x. We cross multiply and we get 3x is equal to 12 times 250, or 3x divided by 3 is equal to 12 times 250 divided by 3. You don't want to multiply 12 times 250 because it's a 2-digit times a 3-digit. See if you can reduce something first. And we can get rid of the 3's on the left side, and we can also reduce the 12 by 3 to get 4 times 250, or once again 1,000. Let's try it again in a different question. So if 12 feet of cloth in store X costs $16, then at that rate, how much do 4.5 feet of cloth cost in the same store? We'll set up a proportion. 12 feet for $16 is equal to 4.5 feet for an unknown amount of dollars, for x dollars. So 12 over 16 is equal to 4.5 over x, or 4.5 over x. Always write it first with the units. So if you remember here, we had feet and dollars and feet and dollars. When you're setting up a proportion, these units have to be the same. So if you have feet in the numerator, it's got to be in the numerator in both fractions. If you have dollars in the denominator, it's got to be dollars in both denominators, in both fractions. So we have this equation, 12 over 16 is equal to 4.5 over x. We'll reduce first before we do anything else. Whenever you see a fraction, always reduce first. So you can divide the top by 4 and the bottom by 4, and you get 3 over 4. And now we can cross multiply. 3x is equal to 4.5 times 4. 3x is equal to 18, because 4.5 times 4 is equal to 18. Divide both sides by 3, and you get x is equal to 6. So 4.5 feet of cloth cost $6 in this store. Let's try this question. A certain factory produces 18 refrigerators every 8 days. If the factory runs for 45 days, how many complete refrigerators will it produce? So we know that 18 fridges can be done in 8 days, and that's the same as x fridges in 45 days. 18 over 8 is equal to x over 45. We reduce first, so we get 9 over 4. Then we multiply both sides by 45, and we get here 45 times 9/4 is equal to x. 45 times 9 is 405. 405 divided by 4 is 101.25. Now, the question here is, how many complete refrigerators will this store produce? 101.25 is 101 complete refrigerators and a quarter of one. But since we're asked for how many complete refrigerators, the answer here is 101. In a pie chart, one of the slices is 40% of the entire circle. How many degrees of the circle is that slice? Whenever you're doing geometry, draw the figure first. So here we can draw a circle with a slice, and we'll label it as 40%. It's important to realize that there are 360 degrees in a circle. This area, this shaded area, this slice, is a certain amount of those degrees. It's x degrees. So we can set up a proportion because it's both x degrees out of 360 and 40% out of 100, or 40 over 100. So 40 over 100 is the same as x over 360. We then reduce to get 2/5, and we can cross multiply, or multiply both sides by 360, to get 360 times 2/5 is equal to x. We can reduce again, we can divide 360 by 5 to get 72, and 5 by 5 to get 1. So now we have 72 times 2 is equal to x. If you multiply by 2, you get 144. So the answer here is there are 144 degrees in a slice of a circle that is 40% of that circle. Let's take a look at this question. The ratio of the length to the width of a rectangular painting is 4 to 2.7. If the length of the painting is actually 12 feet, what is the width of the painting? So we know that the length to width, this ratio is 4 to 2.7, or 4 over 2.7. But we know that the actual length is 12. And what we're trying to find is the width. So we can rewrite this as a direct proportion. 4 over 2.7 is equal to 12 over x. So we get, when we cross multiply, 4x is equal to 12 times 2.7. We can divide both sides by 4 to get x is equal to 12 times 2.7 over 4. And the 4 and the 12 cancel out to get x is equal to 3 times 2.7, which is 8.1. So the width of the painting is 8.1 feet. And finally, let's take a look at this last question. Researchers caught and tagged 65 deer in a certain forest, and then let the deer go. Then the researchers caught another 80 deer, and 16 of those deer were tagged. Approximately how many deer are in the forest? Well, we know that in the whole forest there are 65 tagged deer. What we don't know is the total number of deer. That's the unknown. However, we know that when we caught the deer, there were 16 that were tagged, and there were a total of 80 deer that were caught. So here the direct proportion we're setting up is tagged to total in the forest and then in the batch that was caught. So we can write 65 tagged out of the total is equal to 16 tagged out of the 80, or 65 over x is equal to 16 over 80. We'll reduce because that's what you always do whenever you see a fraction. So we can divide the 16 by 8 to get 2, and the 80 by 8 to get 10. So now 65 over x is equal to 2 over 10. We can divide that, we can reduce that further to 1/5. And we have 65 over x is equal to 1/5. We'll cross multiply and we get 5 times 65 is equal to x, or 325 is equal to x, which means that there are approximately 325 deer in the forest. We say approximately because this is a statistical method of approximating populations, but our answer is precisely 325.